All right, welcome back, Mill Summit. Welcome to your next breakout session, Exploring the Path of a Leader. Are you ready for the secret sauce of leadership? I can't hear you. Are you ready for the secret sauce of leadership? This next session is moderated by our very own Noah Olson, Director of Innovation of Delaware Prosperity Partnership. Our speaker we have today, the CEO of Leadership Delaware. And if you don't know about Leadership Delaware, you should be right here, right now. A little bit about Jen Cohen. Prior to joining Delaware Leadership, Jen led Delaware DOT under two governors, where she led agency-wide reforms and produced the largest capital program in the state's history. Prior to her appointment as secretary, Jennifer served as the director of the DMV as the first woman to do so. Her state public service career spanned more than 31 years. Everyone get a round of applause for Jennifer Cohen.
All right, everybody, we're excited to get started for our next session here at Mill Summit. I'm going to stand for just a minute and follow up on that great introduction that Andre gave for Jen, and then we're going to jump into it because we're going to learn about the secret sauce of leadership. That's what we're here to do today. A little bit of my background and how it kind of is relevant for our conversation today. Andre mentioned I'm at Delaware Prosperity Partnership, so we're an economic development group for the state that works on attracting businesses to come into the state and also works to help support businesses here to get them connected to the resources they need to grow. I've been fortunate enough to be in a leadership position with DPP for the past 3 years, and that has come with lots of challenges, lots of opportunities as well. But last year for me was really transformative, in part because I went through a program called Leadership Delaware. I'm the third or fourth LDI alum on the stage today, so this is something that opens up a lot of opportunities for us, and Spur Impact and Mill Summit have been great partners. But my experience with LDI wouldn't have been the same without my class, which I've got some classmates here, but also without Jen. Jen is the CEO of LDI and has become a mentor, a coach, a leader for the whole LDI community, but also for me personally. And so just to speak a little bit about that, we heard about her professional background, which is really impressive and full of major milestones when it comes to leadership. But for me, her leadership style is reflected in two big ways for me. One is leading by experience and through experience. So we learn a lot by reading, by going out and reading how to do things or see things, but we don't really learn until we experience it. And that's something that Jen's been able to pass on to me and to many of us in the program. And also the second thing is compassion. So Jen is a really compassionate leader. That means she's kind, she leads with empathy and can work with you that way, but she's also very direct and will tell you when you need to fix something, we need to fix your face, anything like that. She's able to give it to you straight, and that's been really helpful for me. So I'm going to turn it over to Jen. We're going to learn about the secret sauce of leadership and have a good time. And we look forward to hearing questions from you guys when we wrap up as well. So, Jen.
All right, what up, Mill Summit 2024? Woo! All right, thank you. Now, actually, I think I'm going to stand. I've got too much energy to sit. Yes. So those of you that know me understand this completely. All right, so we're going to play a game at the beginning. I need you to yell out your favorite sauce.
Pesto.
What? Pesto. Buffalo. Barbecue. I knew somebody come in with the hot stuff, always. Some sriracha. Anything else? Honey mustard. What's your favorite sauce? What? Chesapeake. You like that, Obey? Yes. Yes, indeed. All right, well, what if I told you that there is a secret sauce to leadership? Would you believe me? If it's coming from, that's funny. And looking at it, you guys, I feel old as shit. I got to tell you right now. I really do. So I am like Farmers Insurance. I know a thing or two because I've seen a thing or two. So I'm going to go over the top 10 traits of great leadership that my 35 years in leadership has kind of taught me. And Noah's going to help me and challenge me as we go through each one. You guys ready? Oh, for God's sake. Are you guys ready? All right, let's go.
There we go.
Okay. You think this would be the simple one, right? Great leaders practice civility. What do you think? Do we see much civility in our leaders right now? No, we don't. So what does that tell you? This is the whole thing is interactive. I don't know if you didn't sign up for the right session or not, but the whole thing is interactive. So I do the Q's, you do the A's, and then we do the thing. So civility. Great leaders have to practice civility in all cases. We see way too many leaders losing their shit over dumb stuff, right? And one message that I really want to make sure that I get through to you guys is you guys are the future of our state and our region and our country. Please do not get stuck in the thick of thin things. I got an amen from my girl Sade. Do not get caught up in the thick of thin things. And I say that because it's so easy to get caught up in negativity, to be oversensitive, and we see this with our leaders all the time. So please, whatever you do not get caught up in the thick of thin things. And make sure at all times, no matter how angry you are, no matter how upset you may be, or how offended you may be, practice civility at all times. What do you think, Noah?
Yeah, I agree. But I think I want to push you a little bit further on that point too, given the context not of just leadership in general, but what we're all experiencing right now in politics. So I'm going to quote one of our favorite intergalactic politicians, Chancellor Palpatine, who says there is no civility, there is politics. So in politics, that is the place where we see the worst of the uncivil leaders. How can we think about looking to our elected officials or communicating with our elected officials that we want civility from our leaders?
I think there's the main number one thing you can do is vote out the idiots. They're in there because you guys vote for them, right? That's why they're there. So that's the number one thing. And then make sure, and we'll go, there's actually another leadership trait that we'll talk about too, is hold them accountable. And then what makes Delaware so unique, especially when it comes to politics, Noah, is that anybody could go to Legg Hall. You could sit in and you could listen. You can speak at every single committee. You can read every single bill that comes forward. How many of you have been to Legislative Hall? All right. About half of you. That's actually pretty good. How many of you have actually gone to their website, pulled a bill down, and reviewed a bill? Ooh, look, A+. I'm so proud of you guys. Delaware is very unique. So practice. It's your civil duty to do that, right? So, and then, again, vote the knuckleheads out. We're Star Wars buddies. I don't know if you know that or not. So there'll be a lot of weird references to Star Wars.
I have Chewbacca socks on today, so.
All right, moving on to the next one. Great leaders have integrity. These are just building upon each other. So remember, we're making sauce. We're making that secret sauce of leadership. Integrity. What does integrity mean? Helena, what does integrity mean to you? Doing the right thing when no one's watching. Not hard, right? It's really, really hard. Making sure you do what you say you're going to do. Don't be that person, oh, well, give me a call and we'll go meet and talk about that issue, and then never do that thing. I know we're picking on politicians because, well, it's fun for me now. And I can. So really making sure that you follow through and do what you say you're going to do. It's as simple as that, but it's also probably one of the most difficult ingredients to the secret sauce of leadership.
I wanted to just follow up on that too, to say, how does that happen? You talked about politics. I think that's a natural transition into your professional setting, your job. But how do you do that out in the community? Do you do it in a different way if you're working kind of volunteering or doing something like that, where your stakes aren't necessarily as high, but maybe somebody else's are?
No, that's an excellent point. And the answer is it's the same. How many of you are on boards for nonprofits? Or how many of you run nonprofits? How many of your board of directors are on there just because they want to say that they are on that board? That's not integrity. So if you are on a nonprofit board, and everybody who's gone through LDI, I know I preach this, if you are going to be on a nonprofit board or any community organization, make sure you give it your all, make sure it's something that you're passionate about, and really importantly, making sure it's something that actually brings you joy to do. Helene, I'm looking at you because that warm hearts, thing. But yeah, make sure you give it your all and don't just check off a box, because people can smell fake a mile away. Let's see. Was that it? Great leaders are accountable. Another one you think would be pretty easy, right? Be accountable. If I vote you in and you say you stand on these issues, I don't know, we're talking about policy. You started it, by the way. If you say we voted you in because you took this stance on these issues, then I better see your voting record be be very similar to what we voted you in for. And again, doing what you say you're going to do. Do not just do, again, it really goes back to being accountable and accountable to yourself. And one thing that I think I can tell, I'm Gen X, so me and the boomers, self-care is really important. So you have to be accountable to yourself. If you are stretched too far, you're not going to be a good leader. If you're not taking care of yourself or being accountable, or you said, I'm going to save, X number of dollars towards the down payment on my house. And then you're like, oh yeah, but I'm going to go to Cancun. So you're not being accountable to your own self. So make sure you're accountable.
I wanted to bring it again to a smaller kind of realm. If you're on a team of, let's say 10 people, you're leading a team of 10 people. What are some steps you could take as a leader to allow that accountability to be a part of the process of your interactions with your team? How can you empower your team to hold you accountable as a leader when you're not voted in?
Yeah, I think it's really a culture of trust, really creating that culture. And then also, I've been a part of a lot of teams in my career, and sometimes failure is not a good thing. I think you need to create a culture where failure is okay, because when you fail, you learn, right? I'm not saying fail every time, but fail forward fast and learn from that. So making sure that you have a culture of, acceptance, a culture of, it's okay to take some risks. It's okay to be innovative, even if you fail, and then supporting them when they do. Good.
Thank
you. I feel like I'm getting graded by Noah.
I'm just taking that notes.
All right. Great leaders show vulnerability. This is normally where all the men in the room start getting squiggly in their chairs. Why is being vulnerable important? It makes you human, right? It really does. So I'm gonna go Jayco unplugged for a moment, and I want to tell you: anybody Brene Brown fans in the house? What is the most powerful emotion? Shame. Look at you in the front row. I like it. Shame is the most powerful emotion, and I'm gonna tell you my quick story. And it's only about 15 years ago where I was able to tell it, because it makes me vulnerable. It makes me and it will connect with at least one of you. So I was born and raised in Hartley, Delaware. Anybody know where that is? Last census population was 74, and that's not funny, I know. Yeah, that's right. My father was the town drunk. Like, everybody knew it. We would have to repeatedly go and pick him up at the town bar. And he literally drank himself to death in the summer of 2015. Like, vodka, hit the ground, acidosis, gone. And I got to tell you, growing up was very difficult. We were poor, and I'm going to pick on politicians again. I come from, humble beginnings, which is a bunch of bullshit. If you haven't had to choose between whether you pay your electric bill, you put food on the table, that is not humble beginnings. So come from humble beginnings. It was very tough growing up. I had an older sister who last known whereabouts was Baylor Correctional. Just fell into the same line of, peril that my father was. So I realized when I was 18, I was like, I got to get out of here. So what did I do, ladies? I got married. Yeah, I got married. And guess what I married? An abusive alcoholic. It's like, okay. So you see the hamster wheel when you don't know anything else. And it's like, okay, so this wasn't working. We were about a year in. And it's like, okay, I got to make this better. So I was 19 and said, what can I do to make this better? Ladies, what I do? Yep, I had a baby. That would fix everything, right? Yes, so that would fix everything. So I was going to school, and I got to tell you, the state government saved my life, you guys. When I say that is because I started as a co-op in 12th grade and just worked and had many mentors and guardian angels. Senator Nancy Cook, who was my guardian angel throughout that time. But I was putting myself through school because going to school, growing up, there was never any talk of college. It was, children were meant to be seen and not heard, especially little girls. And so I was putting myself through college at night, working all day. And one night I came home and my 2-year-old, I couldn't find her. She wasn't in her crib, couldn't find her anywhere. And I finally found her. She had crawled under one of the cabinets in the bathroom, but she was fine. But my husband at the time was drunk, passed out on the floor. And I said, this is enough. This is enough. So at 20, I had a toddler. I was homeless. Not like living in a tent in the woods homeless, but transient homeless. And I saw I'm dating myself again, a 2020 episode with Barbara Walters. And it was all about how young girls raised by single moms, if they see their single mom do well, 90% of them do well as well. So I was like, okay, shit's getting real now. So worked very, very hard. Went to school, worked hard, got lucky. And now I got to tell you, I was the first woman to run the DMV. I am in the Delaware Women's Hall of Fame. There's only like 100 of us. I have led the US delegation all over the world. Now, I don't tell you that story because I want to inspire you. Why do you think I tell you the story? To be vulnerable and to let you know to never, ever, 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 ever define somebody by where they come from or what they look like or their family. You just can't do it. Because if not, I wouldn't be standing here as CEO of Leadership Delaware. So being vulnerable, and the first time I told that story was to a bunch of teenage girls at the Boys and Girls Club. And I had one come up to me and she's like, "You're describing my life." And I was like, well, that vulnerability helped that one girl. So good leaders are vulnerable, and that is part of the secret sauce. I don't know if you have a question to that or not.
Well, that's hard to follow up. It's such a impactful story. So I thank you for sharing it with us, because that's, it's vulnerable. What you're doing. I wondered, I think vulnerability can be a key part of empathy. And so I wondered, kind of how being able to be vulnerable like that allows you, or can you define kind of empathy for you when it comes to leadership, and how that vulnerability plays a role when you're working with a team?
Yeah, I think especially Leadership Delaware, and there's a few of you in the audience, everybody comes with different stuff, right? Like it comes with different things that are going on. They're all in different places of their lives. But you know what I find, especially with millennials and Gen Zs, is just listen. Really just listen and let them know that you're not alone, and you're not the only one on the planet going through what you're going through, and that you are awesome. I see so much imposter syndrome that makes me want to punch a baby. Not any of y'all's babies, just some random baby. Because it's more, it's inner game issues, right? You are all awesome. You're all here, so you're all amazing humans. So I think really just listening and encouraging and making sure people know that they're awesome, because it's so hard. Oh, so-and-so said something bad about me on Facebook, or somebody did a TikTok and made fun of me. Screw that. Who cares? That's getting stuck in the thick of thin things. Don't do it.
I wanted to follow up on that a little bit. Imposter syndrome. I think I'm good, but that's something that I struggled with. And so I think, I wonder what your advice would be, in terms of trying to, A, battle that, but B, understand that is, even if you don't call it imposter syndrome, at higher levels of operations or organizations, there are a lot of people who are figuring it out as they go.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I really think it's inner game issues, because what programs your brain to think that you shouldn't be at that table? That's nobody else doing that but you. So I think just instead of being, oh man, I might not be in the right room, or maybe I shouldn't be at this table, just be like, fuck it, I'm here, I'm going to do whatever I want to do, and make a name for yourself. So get it out of your head. I think that's probably one of the things, and I don't get mad or angry about anything, but that makes me angry. And no offense, but that is a term that was made up from a man to describe why women shouldn't be in the room. Sorry, you started it.
No, this is, remember what I said at the beginning? She's very straightforward, and we'll give it to you straight. So thank you, Jen.
All right. I don't like being vulnerable that much, but it's part of being a good leader. Okay, great leaders communicate effectively. I work with so many companies all across the state and the region and the country, and I can tell you 90% of the problems that they have in their organization is communication. You guys believe me? Why is that so hard? I'll give you a couple reasons. One, this is the first time in our history that we've had 5 different generations working in the same workplace. And these generations don't know how to communicate with each other very well. They really don't. And they, like boomers, have declared war on millennials. They think they have a bad work ethic. They just don't take the time to understand. And that's really, I teach this, intergenerational communication is probably the biggest I see light bulbs over people's heads when we go through this. It's like, yeah, every generation has had a major event, right? That shapes them. Everybody's had a war. Everybody's had some type of health issue, but really taking the time to understand. And then as a leader, pairing them up. Because what leaders tend to do is like, oh, okay, well, we'll just keep these guys. These are our seasoned people. We'll keep them over there. We'll keep our millennials over here. And Gen Z, just Jesus take the wheel with them, right? So we really need to mingle because they can all learn from each other because, the older ones, the Gen X's and baby boomers have all of the knowledge, but they can't work an iPad to save their life. So I think really making sure that you're deliberate about pairing them up is really important. And then the other problem is leaders sometimes are punks. They don't want to have the tough conversations. Right? Because, all right, where are my Freud psychology people? Anybody? All right, so Freud says when you're in a tough conversation or you're in an uncomfortable situation, what is your brain telling you to do? It's fight or flight or freeze, right? Those three. Are any three of them helpful in an uncomfortable, or I call them courageous conversation? Or any of those? So your brain's already pre-wired to mess you up. So understanding that you've got to push through that, and that's where I introduced the other F word. Don't freeze, don't fight, don't flight. Just, again, F it and just push through it because you've got, I think it's a self-preservation thing because people don't want to be unhappy. People genuinely want to be happy and they don't want to make other people unhappy. But believe it or not, especially millennials, they want the feedback. As long as it's given in a constructive way, they want that feedback. So communicate knowing that your brain's already hardwired to screw you up. And then make sure that you understand that intergenerational communication. And you can't communicate too much. You really can't. Sometimes you're like, oh, well, I sent that email. Well, send it again. You can't communicate enough.
I wondered if we could take it even a little bit further out of the kind of professional realm when it comes to communication and talk about it's leadership of a different type, I think. But I think a lot about communication within a family and how important that is to balance out your professional side of things. So communicating with your spouse or communicating with your children, those are battles that I will be vulnerable and admit to going through all the time. I wondered if that was something that you could kind of speak to outside of the professional setting, but how important that still is.
That's actually, it's an excellent point because that's a big chunk of all of our lives, right? I'll do another Jayco Unplugged and tell you another story. I've been married a long time. I've been with my husband for 28, a long time. And I'm a very outgoing, like I'm a directive person. I gotta know where we're going. Let's go, let's move. And he wants all the information before he can make a decision. So I can tell you from a communication standpoint, I got a text. Oh, so-and-so's dad's in the hospital. Well, what happened? How long is he gonna be there? Who's his doctor? Can we go see him? I don't have all of that information. So I would lose my mind and I'm like, why are you asking? I don't know. So from a communication standpoint, I know who he is. He knows who I am. And when he does that, I just say no further information is available right now. That's it. So I don't lose my mind. And then he doesn't feel like put down. It's like, there's no further information available right now. So any of you that know my husband and you say that, he'll know exactly what you're talking about. So it's really that compromise, knowing what people's triggers are back and forth and making sure that, you complement each other all the time. And sometimes that means I got to be quiet and listen to the long, drawn out. Then I start thinking about what's for dinner, but I do listen.
That reminds me of, I spent the first part of my career working for Senator Carper. I know we've got Carpertown alum in the building too, but one of the things that I remember most from my time with him was the story he would tell about a couple who'd been married for 60 years. And he asked them, how do you do it? What's your secret? And it was the 2 C's, communicate and compromise. And so when you threw out the compromise there, that exploded in my head as it's been programmed to do. And so I try to remember that when I think of TC, if I'm in an argument, that I have to communicate and I have to compromise. So thank you.
But now you got to give JC some credit now too.
Yes. Yep.
And now you can make the Kessel run in 12 parsecs.
Yeah, under 12 parsecs.
Under 12. All right. Great leaders empower their people. I don't normally use the word empower because it feels like I have power and I just want to give it to you. But that's not what I mean by that. I mean, get out of the way. And I see this. We were having this conversation with a group I'm consulting with, and it was like these term limits are like an icky term, either with it or not with it. But I see so many leaders hang on to their leadership roles for so long. I'm like, you're grooming amazing. You should be grooming amazing people who are better than you at doing what you're doing. Then you have to understand that at some point in time, to be a good leader means you got to get out of the way and let your people who you've been training take over. And when I see, like, no offense, old white guys holding on to CEO positions for decades, stop that. You need to empower your people and get out of the way and let them do the things that, that you've been training them to do or should have been training them to do. So that's number one. And two, letting them, again, it goes back to that, letting people take risks, and it's funny because, you think about, what I could go around this whole room and say, what motivates you? You will all say something different. Well, a few of you are just going to say money. I can tell by looking at you. But anyway, most people, they want cool things. I want to be on the cool project. I want to go to the cool millennial summit. I want to go, to lunch with the boss. I want to go, on a trip to see something. So find out really what motivates each one of your people and make sure that you get out of their way and let them do it and help them do it.
One of the things I wondered if you had any examples you could share about was helping to empower someone in a way that ultimately is going to lead them to leave your organization because that's the right step for them. What's the balance between empowering them when that's going to mean they're going to, head out and do something different, and that's going to be tougher than on your organization or your business?
I mean, if you're a good leader, you just suck that up. And I'll tell you a true situation that we have with coming through Leadership Delaware. When you come through Leadership Delaware, you become very valuable, and people come knocking on your door for all kinds of things, new positions. Now, where I do like to draw the line, and we struggle with this with Nemours specifically, is that the people who from Nemours come through Leadership Delaware, they end up going on and doing bigger and better things. That's wonderful, as long as they stay in Delaware. I think it's wonderful. So I think having people succeed is really, that should be rewarding. It shouldn't be, I want to keep you here, I want to keep you now, because you're not empowering your people if they're ready to go be, vice president. Let them go. But it's hard. Don't get me wrong, because it's hard, especially because I fall in love with 30 people every single year, and having them, especially if they leave out of state, it's a little heartbreaking. I'm not going to lie, but gotta let them empower and fly. And sometimes I got to tell you, and I've been around a long time, those who leave Delaware, a lot of them come back. Yeah, yep, they come back. Sorry.
Thanks.
I got carried away. Okay, great leaders embrace learning. You guys are here. Wiz is taking notes, although I think she's just doodling. I'm not sure. And this isn't just, I want to go to a summit or I want to go to a conference. I mean, learning all of the things. I'm a lifelong learner, and I got to tell you, every single time that Harvard Business Review magazine comes in, I nerd out because I read through all of the emerging things. And as a leader, there's always going to be something emerging. I'm obsessed with AI right now. I think it's going to really transform how we lead people and how we lead organizations. So really, I tell everybody you should be reading at least 4 books every week. 4 books. It doesn't have to be long books. It could be an article, but just dabbling all the time, making sure that you're constantly learning. And I can tell you right now, and I coach a lot of people, the leadership that we need right now in 2024 is not the leadership that is being taught in schools and institutions of higher education right now. It's not. We have to lead with empathy. We've got to be nimble. you've got to be able to dissolve uncomfortable situations without fighting or flighting or fleeing. So I think really embracing learning is hugely, hugely important. And you're all doing it. You're all here just to hear different perspectives on things. So kudos to you. But that is a main ingredient for the secret sauce.
I'd like to quote a niche Star Wars character, Captain Rex from the Clone Wars. I don't know if anyone is that deep into it like me, but one of his favorite sayings is, in my experience, or in my opinion, experience outranks everything. So I wanted to think about, from the learning perspective, if you could provide an anecdote or a story, either from DMV or Del Dot, where, in your position, you had to go out and learn something, see something, experience what was happening out on the road, so to speak, in order to make a better informed decision as a leader.
All right, well, Del Dot was the biggest stretch for me. I did not want to be the secretary of the Department of Transportation. Who wants that? Nobody wants that. I didn't know anything about construction, sites. But to that point, I had to learn how to read all the schematics. I had to learn how to do with AutoCAD. I had to learn how the financing works. But more importantly, I'm a very boots on the ground person. I got to see it and touch it and work on it myself. So I put on my big pink boots and my pink hard hat, and I went out to the construction sites, and most of them, I think they almost had a heart attack. But I was like, look, just walk me through each section, walk me through each phase, because I was the one that had to turn around and try to explain it to the general public and explain it to the legislatures and the federal agencies on, on what phase and why are we doing E&S, which is environmental stuff. Why is it taking so long? Why do we have to do different types of traffic calming? You just got to jump in. You really got to jump. And then I think what is really important with that, Noah, is you don't know everything. And if you think you know everything, then you're not a leader. You're just not. And knowing when you don't know something and then saying, hey, sometimes people, again, this goes back to that imposter syndrome. Sometimes people are like, oh, I don't know what that acronym meant, but I'm not asking. Freaking ask. And you'll know. And then you'll never have to worry about it again. See, one less thing. So making sure that you just jump in with all feet and don't be afraid.
Thanks.
I got like 100 more, so I'll let that go. Great leaders are authentic. How many of you know some fake ass bitches? Right? Do you trust them? Do you trust them as a leader? Would you follow somebody who you know is being fake? No. Right. That's why it is a secret sauce. Be yourself. If you're quirky, be quirky. If you're nerdy, be nerdy. Right? If you love Star Wars, own it. I sent him all the texts on my Star Wars stuff. But I was on Amazon a couple nights ago, and it heard me because my husband said, would you like another martini? And I'm like, well, yeah, I want another martini. And then all this weird crap started showing up. Like, you know what you need to buy on Amazon right now? LED lightsaber chopsticks. So now I own lightsaber chopsticks. And I was so upset with myself, I texted Noah, and he's like, yeah, I done had them. So be your authentic self. Don't be fake for anybody. That's probably one of my main things. And trust me, I was a fake person for a very long time. I didn't embrace where I came from. I hid all of that. But be your authentic self, because people will respond to that.
So is just by when you're in a team setting, for example, if you're in a meeting, allowing letting a Star Wars quote slip out, something like that. What's the best way to really encourage your team, empowering your team to be themselves too, to release that true self?
Yeah, I think what my experience is that once the leader does it, everyone else's comfort level increases to do it. Like, if they see you being your authentic self, or if they're seeing you, suit and tie, like not our LDI protocols, but all the time on, like, selling, whatever. That's how they're going to mimic. And I got to tell you, and I learned this the hard way, because I'm a hard worker. I've just always been that way, because I just wanted to always do the next thing. And when I first took over running DMV, I had an executive assistant she was older, so she was a boomer. And I was like 8 to 8, because I don't know, you guys are too young to remember, but DMV used to be a hot mess. And I was working 8 to 8 every single day. And I didn't realize this for the first couple of months, but she was trying to match my energy. So she was like, oh, well, I'm staying until 8. I'm like, I don't need you. You go home, go make dinner for your family, whatever. So I would end up leaving the office at 5 o'clock, driving around the parking lot. So she would leave and come back. So you got to be understanding of your people. They will try to match your energy. So if you are authentic, they will be authentic as well. And encourage them to be that way. Encourage them to be goofy. Send Noah goofy texts about weird Star Wars stuff. Right?
I enjoy that.
Oh, okay. This is one of my favorites too. Great leaders serve others. I don't think this one needs too much explanation, because how many, you guys all have day jobs, right? How many of you are also on nonprofit boards? Get back to your church, get back to your community centers. It is extremely important. If you're a leader and you don't give back in some way to your community, and it doesn't have to be a big thing. It doesn't have to be dollars. It could be time. It could be your energies. It could be your treasure. It could, whatever. Just make sure, and not just in a formal way, like help your neighbor who you knew just had surgery and, they live by themselves, DoorDash them something, just give back to others, because we are all human. And I think we all need to be more human, more so now than I don't mean to preach, but more so now than I think ever before. So serve others.
I wanted to just maybe push a little bit on some of that. I see on LinkedIn a lot, or in biographies, especially with politicians, servant leader. I'm a servant leader. So that, that reaction, tells us all a little bit something. I think, what's the difference between, putting servant leader in your LinkedIn profile versus the actual, I think you might have already said this a little bit, but kind of that, what does that mean if someone says that versus how they show it?
Well, I think that it's exactly that. It's their actions. So if they say they're a servant leader on LinkedIn and you don't see at least every other post, hey, I was just helping out at the Boys and Girls Club, or I just was mentoring my little brother or little sister, or I was just, getting canned goods for my church. If you don't see that balance, then they're full of shit. That's the way it is. I mean, servant leader is a thing, serving others, but actions, not words.
Yep. It says it all.
Actions, not words. Okay, so that is at my 35 years of leadership experience. And like I said, I'm like Farmers Insurance. I know a thing or two because I've seen a thing or two. I've worked in an all male dominated, field. And one of the things, I'm gonna just talk to the ladies right now. I went for many, many years demanding respect, like at the table, like flip a table, beat pantsuit, Hillary Clinton it up, right? Just matching men's energy. And at almost like a snap, it went from demanding respect to your name commands respect. So that will happen, but watch for it, because I was so used to like flipping tables. That sounded bad, but that's what I mean. That I didn't realize it's like they're coming to me for my advice. They're coming to me because, I'm the leader that they want to aspire to be. So ladies, watch out for that. Men, some way, intrinsically, you guys know when it's happening. But ladies, sometimes we're in denial on that. So when that happens, when that flip switch, make sure that you recognize it, because it's basically a turning point in your career. So that is my secret sauce. And all of you yelled out different sauces. So all of your leadership stuff is going to be a little bit different. These are the ones that work for me. And then I also have a few things like, sauce is sauce, but ain't nothing without a little bit of cheese on the top, right? Some toppings. So here's a few more toppings that make a great leader and a great sauce is, I don't have my glasses, reward excellence. Tell people they're doing a good job. It doesn't have to be money. How many people like an attaboy? Challenge coin, something, anything. Everybody likes being told when they're doing a good job, right? Give generously. And again, this doesn't mean money. This means time. That means if you're having a meeting, honey, you and I are sitting down. I'm not on my phone. I am giving you my undivided attention as much as you need for whatever it is you need to talk to me about. So be generous with mostly time. Promote fairness. Anybody ever work for that supervisor that had a favorite? Yep. Don't do that. Be fair. Be fair across the board. Even, and I've studied this. Even the perception of unfairness can damage an organization. Just the perception of favorites can damage an organization. So keep that in mind. Be positive. Be happy. And I don't mean, and on the ladies, don't tell me to smile, I'm gonna be offended. Just be happy and be positive. If you can't be, then, fake it. It's not hard. Put a pencil in your mouth, you're gonna smile. So just try to be positive. You can't, look, not everybody's going to have rainbows and butterflies shooting out their butt every day. I get it. But really make that effort to be positive, because positivity spreads fast. Negativity spreads faster. So try not to be negative, even in a negative situation. And then be present. Be present for people. All of your individuals. And coach and counsel. You guys know the difference between coaching and counseling? No? Okay. So coach is when I'm helping you do your job better. Counsel is when I'm telling you when you screwed up and how you can do better. And counsel is also your person when you're not in the room that's your champion. So get both of those and be both of those. And then have fun. How many of you have fun in your jobs? Have fun. Just do it. Have fun. All right, so all of that is the secret sauce. Mine is actually ragu. I know I'm boring, but that's my secret sauce with some toppings on it. So I think we have time for last questions.
Well, before we ask questions, let's give it up for Jen and this presentation, which is really helpful. I have questions, but I want to turn it over to all of you first. Are there questions out in the audience?
How do you maintain being authentic, but also embrace new leadership skills?
So authentic is basically your personality. Like, I know who I am. I'm comfortable who I am. I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm bad at. But being a lifelong learner, like I said, I'm obsessed with AI right now because I just know how awesome it's going to be and how much good it can do. So I think being comfortable in your own skin, you got to be comfortable in your own skin. You can't be authentic if you're not. But you should always be learning what that next and how you can be better. We can all be better every day. Everybody can be better. So making sure that you continue to do that. So I think know who you are, be comfortable in your own skin, but also be open to everybody else and learning new things, for sure. I learn something new every day. I didn't even know this place was here.
Other questions?
How you doing, Jen? Oh, first question, well, we was just talking about it, is when is the book about leadership coming out? Because you just gave like 10, 12 chapters.
That's the rough outline.
All right.
So that'll come out when you're Secretary of State, my love.
Got you. And then my actual question, we always talk about people growing vertically in a company, but can you talk about how to identify people that want to grow horizontally, or how do you tackle that in terms of being a leader, and how do you help people that may necessarily want to grow vertically but really need to go horizontal at this time?
Yeah, so two things. One is it's okay to gather experience, but the other thing I want you all to take to take with you is always be focusing on your end game. Right? Always be focusing on your end game. It doesn't matter what that end game is, Secretary of State, whatever it is. Make sure whatever you're doing, whether you're horizontal or vertical, you're setting yourself up to do that better. So make sure that you do that. And gathering experience is awesome. I mean, really, it's okay. I recommend a horizontal move. I recommend a lateral move so you can gather knowledge, right? And sometimes I even recommend, depending on if somebody's in a slump, go do something weird, like go run the garden center at Lowe's, go do something else that just gathers your experience. Because what makes Delaware awesome, you guys, and I think you know this, is relationships. It's the Delaware way. The more people you know, the more connections that you have, the more successful you will be. So be purposeful about that, in my opinion. Okay.
I saw hands over here, right in the middle. Okay, right.
Do you have a tip or tips for dealing with like difficult leaders who put up roadblocks or don't offer that praise when it's deserved, things like that?
Male or female?
Male.
Yeah. Okay. So we've all experienced this, and there's a couple phases to it. If you're really in an industry that you want to be in and an organization that you really love to be in, I would tackle that head on. And if that doesn't work, and a lot of people are afraid to do this, that person has a boss as well. And say, go to that person, be completely honest, be open, be authentic. Say, look, I feel like you're blocking me, man. And it's not helping me grow. I want to grow, and you're not helping me do that. And if they still continue to do that, go to that person's boss and say, I've gone through the right chain. And honestly, if you can't resolve that, get out. You can't, do not stay in a situation where you are not being valued. And that goes for all of you. If you're not being valued, move on. You know what? There's so many jobs out there. You guys have all heard the governor say there's like 20,000 more jobs than we have people. If you are not being valued where you are, move on.
All right, I have tunnel vision with the hands, so put your hands back up if you have questions. Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I was wondering, what are some of the biggest hurdles to becoming an effective leader that you faced, particularly as a young woman, and how did you begin to overcome those?
Oh, girl. All right, I'll be a little bit more authentic. It's been very difficult. I'm not going to lie. Especially, I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but I'm old. I didn't always look old. So I always had this issue with like, ooh, who did you sleep with to get this job? Or I can't tell you how many times I got patted on the butt at Legislative Hall and got called honey. Two things. One, you've got to know where your boundaries are. And then the other thing is take into consideration intent. Like it would be really easy for me to flip a table for every person who called me honey or every person who said those mean things. But the intent of calling me honey wasn't negative. Do you understand what I'm saying? So again, don't get caught up in the thick of thin things. It will be hard, and be a badass, rise to the occasion. And if somebody set your own boundaries. If somebody pushes you past your boundaries, check them. Kickboxing helps, but you will have it. You will have it. And actually, we should probably connect, and I can give you some more tips and tricks on how to nip that.
We've got time for one or two more questions. Here, yep.
So I've just been promoted to manager when I was a supervisor, and thank you. How do you get the people who were managers and executives to look at you as a manager versus a supervisor as before.
So you were colleagues and now you're over them. Ooh,
Yeah.
that one's tough
And
too.
I also have employees that are older than me that are young.
Ooh.
So that's also been something that I've been trying to navigate.
And that's hard as a millennial. A lot of millennials find themselves in this situation. So, one, you need to be professional at all times, be authentic, but also take into consideration. You know, we were talking about intergenerational communications. They want information differently. They all do. So welcome to management. You have to understand how to best communicate with them. And understand that they want to communicate with you a little bit differently. I mean, if you can do it, I would do one-on-ones with each of them and let them know, and again, you got to set your boundaries. And honestly, this is going to sound terrible, but it's lonely at the top. Be careful who you're buddy with as you rise. And I know it sounds negative, but you really need to make sure, again, it goes back to that fairness thing. Oh, well, they used to go out to happy hour, so they're going to be best buds, so she's going to get the promotion and not me. Again, the perception of that can tear down an organization really easily. So it may mean saying goodbye to some friendships, as terrible as that sounds. Just be colleagues. Oh, that sounded doom and gloom. I didn't mean it to, but it's the truth.
We got time for one more question. Anybody? Sure.
Thank you for all the things you've been sharing. I come from the academia nonprofit world, and some of the things that you're describing are really high EQ levels, that are missing sometimes in business. And academia nonprofit has maybe swung to the far extreme of the other way, where we have a little too much personal, relationship and whatnot. So any thoughts about how to build more professionalism in an area that's a little too personal?
Yeah, especially in the nonprofit world, because a lot of people are in the nonprofit world and nonprofit organizations because they're advocates. And when you become an advocate for something, it becomes, there's emotion and there's passion involved in that. My advice would be to just kind of try to get that barrier between advocacy and professionalism. And sometimes, I can tell Leadership Delaware, there's 3 of us, we're all, I was plunging toilets at one of our sessions the other day. So it's like, you have to, it's different from the nonprofit, but making sure you set those boundaries and understanding the difference between advocacy and actually professionalism. That would be my recommendation. But wait, call me, I can help you through that.
All right. Well, we are at time for the session today. Everyone can find Jen's information through Whova, leadershipdelaware.org. But yeah, let's give it up one more time for Jen and our session this afternoon.